Thank you, Lauren. It's a privilege to be here, and I want to really thank Lauren Bazagan for setting this up because, frankly, as a citizen of Ohio, I'm ashamed and embarrassed that Mahalati is a resident here and he's in this college. I think this is a shame to all of our citizens until this guy gets out of here. I'm Firouz Daneshgari. I'm a professor of surgery at Case Western Reserve University. I have lived here for 20 years with my family. Some of them are here. And I am also founder and CEO of a healthcare company called Bowtie Medical. And some of our employees are here to support our cause. I was in prison. I was arrested in 1981 while I was a medical student with no crime committed, simply just because I was supporting MEK. I was severely tortured. I have significant bodily damage. Some of my friends and employees know some of my damages. I have kidney damage from the torture. But more importantly, I think my story is that what happened to others. I could easily be a picture here on the lawn if it wasn't for a simple act of accident that pulled me out of the line. I was in Evin prison when they lined us up to take us to Gohardash. And when we were all blindfolded and we were on the ground, the guy who was in my charge of my case, all of a sudden I heard someone kicked me on my injured legs because I had lost all my skins, all my muscles on my legs. He kicked me and crossed me and said, I'm not going to let you go and be a simple prisoner. I'm going to kill you. You haven't given me all your information. So he pulled me out of the line, threw me back in the cell. And that basically prevented me from going to Gohardash, where the majority of the killers were. Nevertheless, I have lost many of my friends, many of my classmates. As you know, about 90% of all the people who were killed were the supporters of MEK, the People Mujahideen Organization of Iran, as I was and I am. In addition to that, I have lost other family members. My uncle, who was from another group, he was executed in 1988. But again, more important than that is what I witnessed in the prisons was the resolve and the persistence of prisoners to insist on their identity, on their political beliefs. I'll tell you one simple example of myself, because I think one of the reporters asked me how I was tortured. The very first night I was arrested, they hung me from my wrist without me being able to touch the floor. So for about 24 hours, so I was sleep deprived. So they want to break down your resistance. Then they took me down and tied me into a bed while you're face down and your feet are basically hanging down from the edge of the bed, and they use very heavy electrical cables. They start beating on you. They're so heavy that after a few of those, they change because they get tired. And as soon as they do that, your feet basically bubbles up, swells up, blisters form, and then they keep beating on the blisters until the blisters pop out. And then they start beating on the flesh, on the fresh flesh. And that's where you lose the tissue and so forth. This is the truth. The very first time, and I had never been tortured, of course. I was, 22. As soon as they started the first one coming in, I realized I have to grab to something very important to hold my life together, to resist. And the only thing that could come to my mind was of the leader of MEK, Masoud Rajavi. And I remember the sentence from him that in simple translation said, you could break my body, but you cannot break my resolve. So Every time they were beating, I keep repeating that sentence. And somehow repeating that kind of is like gave me the strength that, you know, I won't break. And then I lost conscious. And as you know, I don't know if anybody's been here, because they do that, you basically start breaking down your muscles, then you start peeing blood for about a week or two. That's where I have the kidney damage. And then, but probably the most damaging memory that I have from the prison is in the evenings at dusk when they would start executing people. We were sitting in the cells and all of a sudden you will hear the fire squad noise. Darr, darr, darr. The silence will take over the entire prison. And then we would start counting the headshots. Tack, tack, tack. We will count, the silence was there to count the number of the headshots to see how many they executed that night. Because just 2 or 3 hours before, they would come through the prison, pull people out of the cells and take them. And then the headshots would be followed by the truck that would carry the bodies. So in an average night, they would execute about 200-300. It started about 6-7 p.m. This was the fall, winter, until about 10. Couple of nights I counted, they executed about 2,200. They killed until about 4 or 5 a.m. And later we found out that night was the Panjshir Mehr, the 5th of Mehr, where there was a demonstrations outside. I will say one more things, and the damages, the physical damages that I saw, because after your wound is, you know, thing, they used to take you to a place where they put bandage on your feet and then they rip off the bandage. I have seen people who absolutely didn't have any skin on their legs. I mean, the best anatomy, live anatomy I've seen in my life, it wasn't in the cadaver lab, it was in Evin prison, on the people that they had tortured. One last memory is when I left Iran, when I escaped Iran, I had a brother who lived in Germany, in the city of Munich. And one day, my brother who lives in Michigan now, he said, there is a concentration camp close by, it's called Dachau. I don't know if anybody knows. Auschwitz and Dachau are the concentration camps. He said, go and visit. So I took the bus and I went for a visit. They had turned the kitchen of the concentration camp to a museum of the pictures of the daily lives of the prisoners. So I started from the left, and as I'm going through the daily lives, how the prisoners are living, in my back of my mind, I'm comparing to this, to the daily life, you know, in prison as I saw it. And honest to God, all of a sudden I said, wow, they didn't have a bad life here in the concentration camp. And I caught myself all of us. I said, where does the origin of that thought? I realized as I was comparing, I realized the prisoners in Nazi camps, they would come outside and they walk, they talk to each other, they would see the sun. I never saw the sun when I was in prison. So the point of this is that this regime has advanced the science and the methodology of the torture. The science and methodology of basically penetrating the people in the other organizations in other countries so they can whitewash this regime's face. And this is what this Mahallati is. And unfortunately, there are a few other people who have been in prison and they have been recruited by the regime to come and badmouth people like me and people like, you know, the prisoners who have lost their lives here. So the regime has advanced absolutely the science and methodology, how they can deceive, how it can lie, and how it can basically delay their departure from the surface of this earth. And therefore, my word of caution after I'm the live eyewitness to this regime, that what they have done, what they are capable of. And I think anyone in their dream, they think that this regime would not do one more thing, because this is so irrational, this is so ridiculous, this is so unbelievable, believe me, this regime does it. If you don't believe me, look at this Mahallati, right? The guy is sitting here enjoying the freedom of this country, living in this beautiful estate and pretending that he's a professor, right? And this is just the surface. This is just the surface. This regime, I believe, when this regime goes down, when the facts and evidence about what this regime has done to people of Iran, and frankly to the people of the region, in Iraq, in Syria, Yemen, and so forth, the Nazi will be so whitewashed in terms of what they have done compared to this regime. So my word of caution to all my friends, or my people here is, please do not underestimate the deception and the abilities of this regime. The only way we can encounter this regime, the only way we can throw this regime, is to put our hands together, and say, whoever is connected to this regime through any other underground channels, through any underground mechanisms that they pretend that they're not a part of the regime, we need to be transparent. We need to disclose their relationship. So we have to be united together, because we have paid a lot. We have paid a lot here. Thank you so much.